So today I'm really excited because I'm going to do the Universes Collide book tag, which is really fun because it basically just has a bunch of questions where you get to manipulate different book universes and figure out what you would do in that situation or what you would want to see. So really fun questions. I was tagged to do this by Book Buds, but Mason in the Dark was the original creator. So let's go ahead and get into it. The first prompt is the switch up. Choose two protagonists from different series that you would like to see swap. So you're taking one out of one book series and one out of another book series, and you're swapping them and making them change places, which is such a fun idea to do, and I came up with what I think is a really good one for me. They're both what you consider adult fantasies, but I just feel like the difference in these characters and make both of these stories pretty interesting. I want to switch Rin from the Poppy War with Tao from the Rage of Dragons. Let me explain why this would be a great idea. So the Poppy War, if you're not aware of it, is inspired by Chinese history, but it's a epic fantasy following a girl named Rin who comes from the lower classes in China, gets into an amazing battle school, and ends up, in a way, summoning the power of gods through using the poppy plant and through, basically using poppy, so drugs. And she's very disciplined, she's very intelligent, but when she starts using the poppy, it kind of makes any person insane. So she's constantly battling in a way for her sanity as crazy things begin happening in the series. Tao, on the other hand, in Rage of Dragons, is basically just trying to avenge his father. His father is killed early on in the book. He's from a lower caste in the society, not the lowest, but one of the lower ones. And for the entire book, he is trying to prove his place, his ability, and get revenge. He's very single-minded, oftentimes goes and runs into things without really thinking, is strong, but also just is not that big of a strategic thinker. He's just all out there, all going to get revenge for his father. So the reason I think that switching Rin and Tao would be a good idea is I feel like Rin's strategic mind in Rage of Dragons would take her power, which she's very powerful just like Tao is, but she also has a strategy to where she can handle the caste system in this world a little bit more strategically. I know I keep saying that word, but really, she would use strategy. She would be able to figure out ways to get around the combat system, and she would have that same rage that Tao has, but also put the brains with it, which I think would be really interesting to watch in Rage of Dragons. Now, the reason I'd want Tao to take over in the Poppy War is kind of the opposite. So Rin, like I said, being a refined person that could figure things out and do really hard training and think pretty clearly, she has a hard time with the poppy plant, and even she is going crazy throughout the series. If we were to put Tao in her shoes, who isn't that big of a critical thinker and is more like a ball of rage and revenge, I wanted to see the destruction he would bring in this world. Honestly, I would just want to see the train wreck that would occur if we put Tao in Rin's place. I don't think you do a better job. I think you do a much worse job, and the catastrophe would just be so fun to watch. So that's why I want to switch those two characters. The second prompt is V is for Villiany. Choose a villain you would like to see get their own story. I have an amazing one, and I don't think anyone can beat the villain that I want to see get their own stories. So, a year or two ago, I read Born by Jeff Vandermeer, which is weird fiction and is basically a post-apocalyptic situation. You're following a girl named Rachel as she finds her friend Born, which is like this weird animal-like plant thing that she can't really identify that she finds as she's scavenging. And Born grows, and a lot of it has to do with like what is humanity and how do you define what is human. But aside from that, the antagonist in this book is a big, giant, scary, powerful, bioengineered flying bear. Now Rachel refers to Mord, which is the name of the flying bear, as the ruler, de facto ruler of the city. There's a bunch of little Mords that are going around too, and it's just like this weird, scary bear situation. And sometimes they even refer to this big, flying, scary bear as a deity. So yeah, I want to see his whole story where we focus on Mord, the bear, as the antagonist in this story as he flies around and wreaks havoc on a post-apocalyptic world. I can't think of anything better for an antagonist's view on the story. The third prompt is the adaptation. choose a character you would like to see get novelized. So basically someone from a movie or a TV show that you would want to turn this movie or TV show into a book. That's at least how I understood it. And this one was extremely hard for me because a lot of movies and TV shows come from books to begin with. The book's usually better, not always though. I mean, there are some exceptions to that. But then sometimes if a show is so good that it pops into your mind immediately, it might be better to leave that as a show or a movie. Maybe that's its highest form of art. For example, when I was thinking of in my head, like, what are some shows that I've just loved in the past? I thought about Breaking Bad. But you don't need to turn Breaking Bad into a book because it's already at its highest form of art and completely executed so well as a show. So no need to turn that into a book. So I was looking for something that was good enough to catch my attention as a movie or show, but also not so good that putting it into a book would make me feel like I was ruining the entire story. So I was just thinking, honestly, like a week or two ago, I watched this pretty popular movie on Netflix that came out maybe a year or two ago called The Platform that was filmed in Spain. And I think I'd like to have that one turned into a book. So The Platform basically is this dystopian, futuristic, almost like horror sci-fi movie. And the idea is the whole movie is filmed in this prison. But the prison is structured very strangely. It's structured really high, so there's floors and floors and floors and floors in this prison. So that you could be at the top or you could be all the way at the bottom. They don't know how far down this prison goes. The catch is that the food is delivered from the top. So it goes down from the top of the hole all the way to the bottom of the hole. And it feeds level by level by level. So if you're at the top, you are definitely going to eat. If you're at the bottom, you're likely to either cannibalize someone or starve to death because the food does not get that far down. Even though technically they say that there's enough for everyone, people at the top are so too selfish to be able to leave anything for people at the bottom. It's obviously heavily symbolic. The director said it was both a critique of capitalism and socialism throughout different parts of the movie. It's really interesting. But I think it would make a really good book. I feel like in the movie, the acting was pretty good, and I thought that it got across what it needed to, but you didn't really get a bunch of internal monologues of this characters in these really dark situations or in these different situations as they're internally struggling with starvation and deciding between death and like cannibalism or suicide. It's like, I feel like there'd be a lot of dark things that you could explore from a person's perspective in that situation that you don't really get to see in a movie. Additionally, I think it would be really interesting to have it with multiple perspectives. Have a couple different prisoners with different backstories. The main character in this movie chose to voluntarily go into prison as like an academic. He wasn't even like a prisoner, so that's a really interesting point of view. You can also get a prisoner who maybe deserves to be in prison, but do you still want to put any human through that type of suffering? You can also make a point of view from someone who set up the system, someone who works in administration, and see it from all these different levels that would add to the movie. And I feel like although the movie is good, it would still not like ruin it to turn it into a book. So that's why I think that this would be a good option for this specific prompt. The next prompt is the crossover, which is basically to choose two characters from different universes you would like to see interact. Now, when I watched BookBuds do this, which I'm going to definitely link their video down below, I did mention that they tagged me in this, their video is really good. They interpreted it different ways. So in BookBuds, because there's two people who run the channel, there's Mary and Joe. Joe kind of took it as like you're putting one character into another character's universe with the character. And then Mary kind of took it as like they're conversing around a dinner table. I kind of take it the same way Mary did in that I would just want to see like them meet, not necessarily in the context of one of the worlds, and that's kind of how I took it. But anyway, the two people I would like to meet, and this is a very weird combination, but I'm going to go with Tita from Like Water for Chocolate and Evie from The Diviners. Like Water from Chocolate is like a magical realism Mexican classic that was written, I think, in the 1980s. But the whole story is that in this family, the youngest daughter never gets to marry, never gets to do anything with her life, basically. The youngest daughter's role in the family is always to take care of the mother in her old age. So Tita is the youngest in this family. She falls in love, but isn't able to marry her love and instead has to take care of her mother and kind of live in a state of repression until maybe, that can always get too much to handle. But the whole book, she's in this state of repression, caring for her mother, and that's all she's ever going to be able to do with her life. And then Evie from the Diviners is just really fun. She's, it's a 1920s story. She's like a quintessential flapper party girl who just has a lot to give and a lot to offer. She's also a really big extrovert that can bring people out of their shells. So I think if she were to meet Tita for Water for Chocolate, sorry, this is a Spanish edition, so I keep having to remind myself of the name. She would pull Tita out of her shell, help Tita get over some of what she has to deal with her family, maybe some of that repression, and they would at least have a fun time. So I guess in a way I'm just trying to get Evie to help Tita out. But I think that both of them would definitely bring things that would be interesting to the table. And at least for one day, it would just be a cool combination to see. Okay, the last prompt is Tonal Shift. Choose a story to give a different tone or genre to. And I was really thinking about this one for a while, and I think that the genre a lot of books I read are the genre I would like. But I decided to go with The Grace here. This is a dystopian book. It's often described as a crossover between Lord of the Flies and The Handmaid's Tale. I can actually see that description. Usually I disagree with those crossover things, but that one's kind of close. And basically all the girls in the society have to go out into the woods by themselves with a group of girls for a year to get their magic out, because it's a really heavy patriarchal society that only sees women to be useful for moms and wives. So they feel like they have this natural power and that the girls have to just go out, get that out of their system so they can come back and be great wives. But during this year, there's a lot of bad things that happen and a lot of attacking, definitely very Lord of the Flies in that sense, and even some hunting of girls. So it's dark and it's dystopian, and I like it like that. But what if we were to take a dark dystopian novel like this, where there's a bunch of girls attacking each other and getting attacked, and in this really dark situation, and instead of making it full-on dystopian, we made it a dark comedy. So all of the big intense moments are put in a way to where they're comedic, and it's kind of you don't like that you're laughing at it because it's terrible, but at the same time it's kind of funny. I don't know. I'm kind of a fan of dark humor. I like a lot of those English dark humor movies. I think The Lobster was one I've watched recently where it's just crazy and it's dystopian and it's weird, but it also has a little bit of an undertone of it being kind of comedic in a way that you don't want to admit. And I think this might even be better as a dystopian, but I would totally be on board reading it if it was this really demented dark humor book. So I love this tag. The questions are great. You do it too if you like the questions. It's so creative. I'm going to go ahead and tag a couple specific people. I'm going to go ahead and tag Andrew's Wizardly Reads. He is an adult fantasy reader and has read a ton of adult fantasy and has a lot of really good book reviews on different books he's read. He also runs a really good Discord, so definitely go check him out if you have not already. And then I also want to tag Reading with Lawrence. Reading with Lawrence is a member of the Dragon's Library book club with me. She has a lot of great opinions and her channel is also really fun, so go ahead and check her out. And then third, I'm going to tag Chaz M. He has been a friend of mine for a while in the booktube community, does really great in-depth book reviews. He just barely did one on N.K. Jemison's Obelisk Gate. He's very thoughtful in what he says, and I'd like to see him do this as well. I don't think I've tagged him in something for a long time, so check him out as well. And then if you like this video, go ahead and check out my last tag, which was the Hindsight 2020 tag, where I talk about my history as a reader. I'd love to see you there as well. Have a great day, and hopefully I'll see you later.